We have a very interesting session that's coming up. It is a panel discussion. It is on new age cloud technologies, and our panelists will be discussing and throwing some very valuable insights on what is driving data infrastructure transformation with new technologies, platforms, and cost models. With that, it is a privilege for me to invite on stage our esteemed panelists for the session.
You all awake, and then also the panelist. Okay, so let me set the context. As was told that this is a session around new age technologies, and of all of you are in the room who are something to do with retail business. I think this is one area where adoption of new age technologies has been pretty fast, at least in last 5 years. And that is how we have seen the models evolve from B2B to B2C to born in cloud to then becoming hybrid. And every day we see new cost model, new operating model coming up. So let me set the context for the next half an hour conversation, and then maybe we'll open it up for a few question and answers as well. So, it's about nothing unknown that every retail business today is becoming more and more data-driven. It's all about ensuring to get the maximum pie of the wallet from the customer and the same customer. If you are losing the pie of the wallet of a customer, then you are losing or eroding your business, from that particular prospect. So that's the essence of the whole, conversation. And if data becomes so important, equally important becomes infrastructure to host that kind of data, because you need to run a lot of analysis on that. And that's where the big data term got coined. And the big data and the AI industry speaks of something which says that, wrong data gives you wrong inferences. So, you need to have the right data to give you right inference to drive, ensure that you have the right insight about your business to support the growth. And most importantly, it is also the question of customer delight, because loyalty term in retail business slowly has become a very priced product. With so many brands coming out, so many alternates for all of us as consumers, gone are the days that if you had one Sony TV in your house, generations, will keep changing that black and white to the next color and to the next color, then to the latest LED, which all will be Sony in the house, or all will be the Samsungs of the house. If you have 3 TVs in a house or 2 TVs in a house, probably it will be 2 different brands. And when you're trying to talk about the next one, you're probably thinking of a very new brand at all. So with that context, we have a very eminent set of panelists who run very important business for their own company and very different business models. So let me start with Anil. Anil, demonetization of data and the data infrastructure also slowly is pushing people to talk about open source. A few years back, we started talking about unified architecture, platform, one complete stack of products. But the more and more, you are moving towards such an infrastructure-based application. You're talking about, open source, DevOps, different development platforms. So is the business on one end of Strata trying to look forward and adopt cloud, make public cloud mainstream, at the same time at the backyard trying to build monolithic organizations around development tools, etc.?
Very truly said that. With Starbucks, at least, from day one, we are on cloud. So the whole mindset change which was required and which hampered us for some time when the cloud had just walked into the stack, that was no more there with us. So from last 6 to 7 years, we are on cloud. While you say that, and while you correctly said that we are moving more into open source, if you look at the way the journey begins and where we are right now, we have technology changing every quarter. If I may not say that more. While it's changing on a quarter basis, we also have to maintain our legacy systems which are there with us. So to bring a fine balance between both of them and not adding up onto the cost factor, which always, right, as of now, every organization goes back saying that, you know what, IT is a spend, let's bring it down. Can we make it more flexible and more usable for the end users? While that is one of the statements, they also expect a faster turnaround time. While you're looking at a faster turnaround time, open sources now, the community has become too strong. They are walking into spaces which need integration in no time. They are working on, and from the IT standpoint, at least you have licensing and others to be also be walked away from, and so the cost comes down in any which ways. Having said that, this brings us two flexible points to us. One from the cost perspective, the second from the more technology front of it, where we can walk with the customer ahead.
Thanks. And I'll come to Ranjan. Ranjan, I always have this question when large technology transformation happens. And it's easy for a large enterprise maybe, where you embark on a large journey. But somebody who's a startup, who is into this journey early, and also, a mid-sector player. And India is a pretty large mid-sector player ground. For them, as you talk about cloud infrastructure, you talk about data, etc., the TCO calculation becomes a big question mark. And always when you go to the CFO for budgets, etc., he or she will first ask you, where is the return? How do you tackle with some of these questions when it comes to you?
Thankfully, I did this job about 6.5 years back, so I still remember that. And this was a time when all our infrastructure was managed from a global organization in Denmark. All applications were run from Europe. And we decided that we were not getting enough attention because we were very, very small. We were just about 3 years old in the country. The business was not sizable enough to get enough attention to do many things that we wanted to do. And given the size of the Indian market, the opportunity was pretty big. But then when we started thinking of, and we went the other way around. Most of the organizations, or most of the large organizations, the way how they do is, they harmonize systems, they bring systems together. We went the other way around, where we said, we'll create a different system infrastructure or the environments completely for India as a business, and we'll create complete autonomy for India, where India can do the business they want, the way, because it's a different environment, the business needs were different. What you needed from the same solutions were very different in Europe versus what you needed in India. One of the big questions that again started coming back was, do we host it ourselves? Or do we go to a cloud infrastructure player? Do we work with them? And then when we started working on the cost front, obviously there are a lot of elements that actually go and which go unnoticed. Many a times people don't even budget for the amount of people that you need to keep those lights on if you're hosting it yourself, running it. And there are so many technicalities to it in terms of simple things like cooling, power. And who do you get to manage that on your own? And why do you really want to do that? Is that my business? My business is retail. My business is selling fashion. And that's when we started this discussion, and we started engaging with the stakeholders and talking to the CFO. For sure, the CFO is not going to get convinced in the first place. The moment he sees a TCO, because any TCO which is more than 5 years, obviously he's going to reject it. But then what's the longer term game? What does it bring to you? What does it bring the agility and the speed that you want in your enterprise? And today's market, fashion business is all about speed and agility. How quickly can you react to something? How quickly can you deliver something off the shelf? Because earlier the projects, I remember the project's life cycle would be 9 to 10 months, of which about at least 3 to 4 months used to be the infrastructure cycle itself. The whole of the procurement, commissioning, and setup. Do you want to get rid of that? Because when you start the project, you don't even know the sizing in terms of what do you need in the infrastructure. You get to know the sizing very late in the overall journey. When do you decide what infrastructure you need? What kind of servers do you need? What kind of a compute you need? What kind of a memory you need? What are the different things that you need with it to go inside it? And by the time you start realizing what you need, it's pretty late, because then most of the projects used to get stalled because the infrastructure was not available. And we also wanted to solve that problem. We said, this is not something that we would want to bring into our projects. And hence, TCO definitely was not an easy task to create, but then when you start putting the people aspect to it, when you start putting the redundancy factors to it, when you start putting the 24/7 uptime factor to it, that's when the TCO starts working out, which normally you don't calculate, but then if you start putting numbers to them, it starts working out. And that's what we did. And hence we decided to move on to cloud completely at that point of time.
Great. I think, we'll be very, very happy to hear this. But, you're coming from Singapore. So let me throw a different question to you. The whole question around GDPR. As a country, we are still evolving. And, we hear that the Indian avatar of GDPR will be there in some point in time. So when you come and talk to Indian clients who are still early in their journey to adopt public cloud and make it mainstream, and especially where regulators have a very different approach to cloud, the financial institutions, the public financial institutions of the country still are absolutely cleared to be, on-prem for any application, and so is, say, judiciary, so is, say, anything related to regulated. In a scenario like that, what parallels do you think we can draw, or learnings that we can draw from a country of yours, which needs a lot of coaching to Indian clients in terms of moving to that journey? Because, while, some people have taken a leap on cloud, I think it's still very early years, very few applications, not many business apps which are still deployed. The percentage of that is very low. So, what are those learnings?
So maybe I share a little bit from retail perspective, right? In Singapore, in fact, GDPR is actually one important aspect of security, personal data protection, all those stuff. In fact, in Singapore, almost like 10 years ago, we came up with this thing called the Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA. And then this Europe only recently just released the GDPR. In the Singapore aspect, when you talk to the retail industry, this is the feedback I gather from the government. The government, first thing they say is, the retailers, typically they are looking at starting the business. They are running small business. In fact, security, data protection, personal data things is not what they're concerned about. Their main concern is, can I make the sales? Can I survive? And that is actually first, I'm not sure how many of you here actually is in that position, because today I look at retail industry, cloud in fact is having a very good formulas for you, right? Because it is very cheap to start, it is pay-you model, whatever you want is all in there. Like for example, let me share you one example in Huawei's products, right? We enable AI on the cloud. How many retail company can really make use of AI? I think it's none. But we are actually putting it into the cloud to make it so affordable, 15 cents per hour for you to be able to enable AI on retail industry. All right, that is something that is everybody's affordable, right? So before we talk about PDPR, the first thing is we talk about the fundamental needs of the retail. When you started a new business, right, of course, when you go to a certain sizable scale of your company, then you can start thinking about how to formalize the company process, how to actually put in GDPR, right, this protection. The challenge in Singapore government has seen is they want to put in all these regulations, but it is very difficult for them to convince the retailer that this is something to be done. Because the retailer will give you all this feedback that my business just started, I'm still struggling, I don't even know whether I have tomorrow, why do I bother about all this? Okay, so that is not a very positive feedback, okay, of course. So what the government is doing today is that they give incentives, right, to allow some of the standard process. In fact, in retail, in Singapore, we came up with this thing called the Industry Transformation Map for retail. And in the map itself, they chart out what kind of technology that most of the retail, nowadays the retail need to comply to, right? So there are many technologies out there today, and there are many youngsters carrying phones, right? So you cannot have a mindset like the old retail way, right? I have a point of sale solution, I have a cashier there, I collect cash. Because people will come say, can I pay by Apple Pay? Can I pay by Samsung Pay? Can I pay by whatever, right? and then your shop must be ready to adopt to this. So the ITM actually, in fact, the industry transformation map, it is actually a good way that they're trying to drive the industry to have this kind of technology adoption. And through that kind of adoption, at certain point in time, this can be actually incorporated with the GDPR, right, to do the data protections, to have all this kind of compliance. So to me, I look at it as, for India, right, if you're going to drive the industry to have this kind of GDPR adoptions, first thing we need to be able to solve the bread and butter problem first, right? The company need to be able to survive, your business need to be sustainable, and then slowly, the next phase is how can you strengthen your business processes within a company, and then you can talk about some of these IT needs or that. But generally, if you look at the technology available to offer to you now, I think cloud is really a good fit, for most of the retail industry, because that is actually giving you a lot of very good offer, right? Cheap, you have able to use it to reduce your capex. We don't need to have any sizing, right? Because you just load your application, it runs. If you run out of resource, you just auto scale, right? Auto scaling is part of the cloud, and that's where you take away a lot of businesses from those business consulting company, right? Because last time when you do IT system, you need to get the consultant to help you to size up the infrastructure. Now you don't need to have that anymore. With AWS coming with this technology, and the auto scaling will actually bring all these benefits, to companies. So basically, you can create an infrastructure on public cloud to enable you to scale your IT infrastructure based on your business growth, right? As you grow, then you scale, right? And then as you grow, you realize you need more complex business processes, and then the cloud can come in. Some other example I can share with you also that in Singapore retail today, a lot of them have these video cameras, right? They mounted into the shops to do video surveillance. What is going on today is that all these are storing in the local, the local MBR, and it's stored locally. But the trend has been coming out to put this thing into the cloud. Why is that so? Because once you put into the cloud, everything is online. The shop owner can now look at all the outlets 24/7, all right? And the best part, other than surveillance, right? Daytime, you can convert this video surveillance camera, not only just doing video surveillance, but you make it into some kind of video analytic machine, right? So now, with the camera, we can see customer profile can come in. For example, people walk in, people walk by. How many people walk by? How many people come into the house, into your shop? All these are figures that you can capture now. And then those people coming in, male, female, age group, all right? And then with your facial recognition, you can identify, is this my VIPs? If it's my VIP, what action should I take? So the retail can actually make use of a lot of these technologies area, all right, to help you to strengthen your customer relationship. And you can also use the analytics to help you to better understand my customer cloud, right? Who is coming, who is not coming. If you see that those walk past customer is more than those walk in, you got to ask yourself, is my shop not attractive enough? You know what I mean? And then if the cloud coming in have a lot more senior people than the youngsters, you know what are the kind of products that you should position. You know what I mean? And then if you can identify those VIP coming in, for sure, if you address them, Mr. So-and-so, how is your day today? Welcome coming back again. Of course, you don't review too much data, otherwise they run away because they're scared. Correct? Just a few sentences, you captured the heart of your customer. And you can I'm sure that they will come back again. All right? So I think I will share a little until here. GDPR is one issue that is a balance, right? Because to shop owners, I want to capture as much information as I want. But to the customer, I want to make sure that you know the least, the best for me. I think most of you will feel that way. Today, a lot of you use for Google, right? You use Google, you use Facebook, you browse, you use Android. Do you know how much information is being captured by Android, by Google, by Facebook, by all these companies? You'll be surprised if you open it up. I work with the telco, I know. This mobile phone, you carry around. The telco is actually getting the data, and they're able to understand the flow. And because you register yourself, they know who you are, your age group, they can utilize this data to sell to the advertisement company, to monetize the data. That is just one aspect of things. So how do how do you draw the line between GDPR, like what data is something that the operator can use, can utilize, and what data is something that the customer has the rights to maintain, to be confidential. That line today is not clear because certain information let's say the service provider captured is not known to you. All right? So whatever I capture, I think I have the rights to use. Correct? And whatever, whatever you want, you don't want me to use, you'll never have a chance to tell me, to the service provider, until something break up. So it is actually a balance. And that's why, like company like Huawei, we actually do this test on GDPR. Every employee must go through the test to make sure you understand 100% when you capture the data, what does it mean? At what point you need to inform the customer to get for them to grant you the rights to access. And what rights did the employee has? When they ask you to delete, do you delete or do you still keep it? So these are things that within the GDPR, there's a certain regulation that was defined very, very clearly. And then how to execute this, of course, there's a law enforcing it, but it's up to the individual service provider. And then I think it's good things that we have this thing in place so that you actually protect the consumer, at the same time also provide guidelines for the service provider. Okay? I think I'll cover this so much. Yeah, thank you.
So, the question, if I take you from him, the question to both of you and any one of you or both of you can answer. That will tomorrow our business be owned by infrastructure?
Not really. So let me put some analogy between what he spoke and what we are trying to do. This is one space where we talk about, if you're right now talking about to anyone, any other CIO, any marketing, any team, is hyper-personalization. Now, look at the contrast of it. One place we are telling them, we can't capture most of the data because you're getting GDPR, IDPRs and others to run. Now to run this, yes, I need an infrastructure, and that's why I'm going to cloud, which helps me spin up, spin down at times, bring me optimization of cost and so on and so forth. And other aspect, at least from our point of view, is we are trying to get our core is being human, right? Like one of the conversations which we had yesterday was, someone asked me that, can I put a robot in front of Starbucks and he can deliver the coffee the way you want it? I can do that. That's infrastructure, that's everything put there. But would you really feel like coming to Starbucks after that? Not really, because Starbucks still talks about humanity there, talks about the connect out there. So when you say that infra going to be the bigger chunk of it, not really, because it's an integral part of it for sure. Cloud is the next big thing, or not next big thing, is the big thing in fact right now. And but still, having said all of this, we still will have to have an aspect of the business in sense of the commodity which you're going to sell, the variance around that, and personalization to an extent to part of it. Now we'll have to have our own limits, which, in fact, bringing these rules is nothing but bringing a limit to where we can go as personalization. You don't get into my privacy too much that you hurt me around there.
Sure. So Ranjan, lately companies, who are on, transformation journeys, etc., the CIOs or the VPs or the ITs or the leadership are accepting that data infrastructure is also slowly becoming a major bottleneck in their growth. Why? Because the focus is more on reducing their legacy cost, expanding capacity, making things asset-light business model, which means that keep dropping the buy and hold mentality and replace it with, as per you, the pay-per-use model. Via cloud or mobile offerings, IaaS, PaaS, whatever you can say. Slowly then people are thinking that the value that you would have created, that is getting lost and you're becoming more transactional. Like for example, the thought process is not there, to churn out something. Like for example, as you said that you have moved from that stage where you would do some sizing beforehand, then to now, keep resizing as you go. while there are good side of it, the bad side of also is that probably you don't know where your costs are going. You may land up at a 3x cost, because the moment you say that if you put up your, sizing by 2x, your performance will go up by y, and business will say, yes, I want that. So where is it going?
You brought a very interesting question. So a couple of days back, I was having some discussion with my CFO, and in a very, very similar space. So there are some, so if you talk to the CFOs, he will mostly talk about the month-end jobs, the month-end data crunching that they need to do, the heavy data extractions that they need to do. And one of the question, this was related to some taxation that he needed something. And he, predominantly IT and business, they've developed this understanding where if it's a heavy job, you need to do it at night in an off-peak period. But the question that came from him was, what if my tax authority wants it as of now during the day? You need to make it available for me. I can't be waiting for the night to happen when the system to be free, and then I would execute that job, and the next day I deliver that data to my statutory authority. How do you deal with these kind of questions? If you look at it, the good thing that you have with cloud again is you have models available where you can scale up and scale down during the day within hours, and that gives you that flexibility to be able to execute these things. So if you really know that you need that job to be done, or that particular thing needs to be done on 1st of every month, you need not size an infrastructure for the entire month, for the entire year, and invest into that infrastructure for the whole year. You only need to do it for the 1st of every month, where you need to do that, extract that data, whatever time of the day he wants to do it, resize it, bring it down. You have the flexibility to optimize your costs, provided you have, you keeping an eye on the cost. The best thing is, you can only do something which you are monitoring, which you are keeping an eye on. If you're not looking at it, definitely it can go through the roof. We've seen solutions, yes, but then there are certain solutions where you get stuck. Now, if I talk of a similar solution, say I talk of, say any Microsoft-based solution, it's far easier to scale up and scale down. The moment I talk of an appliance, say like a HANA database, then you are stuck. You might not be able to do the same thing because there you might still not, it's been almost about 6 years since I've been struggling on this. No service provider has still been able to give me a scale up and a scale down model within ours. Because that solution is still not, it is so dependent on that individual compliance or the appliance. That appliance is so restricted to it, it is so specific to that particular solution that you might not be able to do it. But then still there are ways now which have started coming in where you could resize it, you could play around with this. So I think there is still an opportunity, and I think if you manage it rightly, one of the biggest costs we used to have earlier was having the managed services piece doing in-house, which we never accounted for. We actually was stretching our people too far. Most of our infrastructure guys would end up spending the nights in the office, or doing working from home or remotely, or working for sure on the festivals. Whenever there is a festival, whenever everybody is celebrating, enjoying themselves, the infrastructure guys used to be in the office doing the job. I think their life was miserable. Today, with the managed services concept, a lot has changed. And if you get a right managed services organization, you are able to structure that better. You are also able to bring in the right skill sets at different times of the year, which you might not have been able to afford if you're doing it yourself. With the managed services guys, you are able to get those skill sets for as little as maybe you just need it for a day, and you could just get him for that skill set for a day. And you need not hire him, and you do not need to get into the challenge of retaining him. Because every year, at the end of the year, you're also faced with the challenge of retaining him, upskilling him, because things are changing. Infrastructure is changing, technology is changing. The biggest question is, how long can you keep upskilling? Is that your business? Is that what you want to do? Where do you want to put your money and your time on? Do you want to put your money and time on? Because technology, let's also accept the fact that earlier business was driving technology. Today, technology is creating a lot of business avenues. Omnichannel is completely because of technology. E-commerce is completely a technology and supply chain game. I think there are newer business models which are evolving because of the availability of technology, because of the availability of infrastructure. Where do you want to put your money on? Do you want to put your money on getting that resource to maintain the cooling in the server room, to maintain the lights and the power in the server room, to ensure that your data center is up all the time? Or do you go back to somebody in a shared service center who is anyway monitoring it for 10 different people? He does it for you as well, and he can bring in many more tools, much more automation, which you might not have been able to even invest into.
Just to add to that, that's one more statement which comes up. Today, it is very commonly, you can hear from the CFOs and the CEOs, why don't you do a POC? That's kind of a very easy word now by everyone. And while they say just do a POC, for us, the first question is, where do I get a server from? What is the server size? What is the implication to my data? What is the implication to my integrations? So that aspect generally moves out while you are on a managed services on a cloud, where spinning up and spinning down is something which is a couple of hours now, and also with their services where you have specific periods, specific tech stack, which is freely available for you. It makes it more easier for us to go to market and see how the POC really works for you.
That's a good perspective from both of you and very interesting. So every technology gets challenged with something new. So I'll come to you as the OEM of one of the cloud solution that people are also talking about future trends of data infra going to be the edge computing. Okay, which is the next wave of technology transformation, and they are saying that edge computing will actually replace cloud. So is it that it will replace cloud or it will augment cloud? Because as an OEM, I'm sure that you are listening to edge computing a lot, ubiquitous, computing, edge computing. In fact, I was in a global conference where Satya was personally speaking, Satya Nadella was addressing the global partners, and he was personally speaking about, ubiquitous and edge computing in a big way. So where do you, as one of the cloud provider, look at that? It's going to be a friend in future, or you think it's a threat?
Well, mobile edge computing, right? MEC. If you talk to all the telco, they will tell you, say, this is actually one trend and one service they want to offer, right? Actually, edge computing all depends on the application. There are certain applications you really need certain things to be processed at the front end. And there are certain applications, the best is you combine and put in the back end. I show you the example of video surveillance. If you have 100 outlets, right, you put edge computing, you're going to be a lot expenses, right? The best is you put it to the cloud end, centralized, where you can see everything 24/7, right? And you can do a lot of management from there. Now, where edge computing come in is, for example, in the scenarios like autonomous car. A car, when you're driving in the field, there are many things that can happen, right? You cannot rely on your back-end cloud. What happens if the connection fail? This is life and death things, right, in a situation like that. So you need to have edge computing to allow you to do the front-end processing. And when things happen, your processing continue when you are in the offline mode, all right? So when you talk about managed mobile edge computing, I just want to share an example. Like we have been collaborating with companies like, what is it called, Audi. Audi is an automotive company. They build cars. We put our micro data center onto the car itself, and we do edge computing based on the micro data center. Meaning in future, when you have an autonomous car, every car is a data center by itself. Every car has got a data center in it, and that is where the edge computing come into play. What do you have in this micro data center? You have the normal processor plus an AI processor. Now, what the AI processor is going to do is You're going to create a lot of algorithms, a lot of models, allow you to recognize the lampposts, the people, the animals, the streets, what is obstacles, this and that, right? Combining with all the other radar systems, within the car itself to allow you to safely, automatically drive the car along, around the city, right? So edge computing in that aspects of use cases is applicable. Now in the retail industry, what can it be used for, right? You can think about scenarios like if you wanted to have some kind of real-time, super real-time interaction, for example, using VR-related stuff, right, where you need to have a very strong local processing and good interaction, and that is a situation where you probably required edge computing to help you, all right? Now, I show you another aspect of things, because Huawei is on 5Gs, right? And in 5G, there's 3 technology. I think most of you will know. One is called the enhanced MBB, where your phone will give you like 20 times the speed of what you can access today. And then there's another one called ultra low latency. The ultra low latency means 1 millisecond response time from the time you send a request to the time you receive the processing response. Okay? So that ultra low latency is the solution, that you can actually use in the retail industry, all right, to help you to improve the performance, all right, to help things that you want to drive, okay? So coming back onto the what you call it, mobile edge computing, right? When you talk about edge computing, I think it is a technology is going to be there. It's not going to go away. There will be a situation where you need to apply that, but then there will be also a situation where this application may be too costly. So it's how you strike a balance between the two of use of technology, using the use cases, and just now I mentioned of POC, right? So POC, in fact, is one way, because I don't trust a lot of this technology for your information. Any technology coming, when people recommend to you, okay, it'll be a very rosy picture. Everybody will tell you, say, wonderful, speed is the best, everything is the best, okay? But trust one thing, you ask for a POC, put things together. So when they tell you, say, edge computing will solve all your problems, don't trust. Do the trial, And then whether it's a centralized model, whether it's an edge computing model, by doing the trial, the truth will surface. And then you decide for yourself, how this is going to use, how you're going to structure the right, scenarios to fit into your requirement itself. All right?
So, let me take an outside-in question for both the people who represent 2 important businesses. I go back to that car advertisement, from a customer perspective, kitna deti hai? You talk about consuming these services, efficiency, optimization, everything. At the end of the day, the customer every day wants something at a lower price. So how do you strike that balance of ensuring quality, efficiency, and at the same time, customer delight? Because if you have to keep discounting, it will somewhere start hitting, and it's a ripple effect. The more you discount, the more you start cutting things, and one of the piece will be on technology. So customer will always ask you, kitna deti hai? How do you answer that question? So I'm just relating just to, translate to you in English. There was a famous car ad here, which talked about all the frills of the car and the intelligence and everything. But at the end of the day, the customer who is trying to buy the car asks, how much kilometer in a liter? Yes. That's what, ultimately matters to the mass. So technology, fine, edge computing, great, cloud, very nice. At the end of the day, the customer says, do I get X discount on this?
Very relevant question for fashion, because today's fashion world, if you see, a lot of it is being led by discounting today. I have not seen in the past few years, at any point of time, I walk into a mall where I'll not find some discount, either in the form of a markdown, of an offer, some promotion, some gifting. In whatever way, there is always something for you. In spite of that, the customer is still asking the same thing. Kitna chalega? I think it's the time for the retailers to take a step back and say, are they ruining themselves? Are they killing themselves in this competition? I think one of the big piece which has also started happening is, if you look at there are two big festivals for all fashion retailers, the end of season sale. One in the winters and one in summer. I remember when 10 years back, the spring summer end of season sale would normally start sometimes in July, middle of July. And it would last for about 2 to 3 weeks. Today it is all about who goes on sale first. And every year you are pulling the dates ahead of everyone, and you are fighting for that piece because you want to attract that customer first to your store. Has it helped the industry? There are different forums where CEOs are talking about it, CIOs are talking about it, CFOs are talking about it. Nobody is ready to take that bullet and say, no, I am not going to go first. So this will remain for a while till the time we keep discounting. The customers have got used to it, and as a result, if you start seeing, it has started impacting the retailers in a big way because now discounts are no more enticing to customers because people have got used to 50% discount, 60% discount. Whether they really get a 50 or 60% discount is something to be seen because but at the end of the day, they've got used to it, and they are not getting enticed with those 50, 60%. So now, the whole thing is changing. People are redefining the whole model. And it's a high time if you start looking. I was just talking to somebody today, and we were talking about a story where there used to be Snapdeal and Flipkart, which used to be in battle all the time. So if you see the first page ad from Flipkart, the second page would be Snapdeal. And one fine day, Kunal Behl decided that that's it. I don't want to go that route. Who is profitable today? Snapdeal is profitable. Flipkart, with all its whims and fancies and everything put together, they're still not profitable. They're still incurring huge losses. I think it's a decision that every business has to take. And I believe the customer today is now no more getting excited about discounts. He's now started talking about experience. And I think that's what we will have to start delivering to the consumer because he's no more buying a product. The product that you might have created might be selling. So you might be selling it at X price in a beautiful mall with air condition and everything else. Somewhere else, the same product could be made in a local factory 2 weeks down the line, and it could be selling at half the price or even less than that. So can you fight that price battle? Can you fight that war? I think people have started realizing that that's not the war to be won. Everyone is losing in that. So people are going back, discussing and relooking at the strategy, and that's where consumer experience has started coming to the fore because now people have started talking about how do you sell experience to customer because customers are going to come back for the experience, not for the price. Nobody remembers what price I bought that particular shirt or a t-shirt or a denim for. People will remember the experience that they received when they entered the store or they went into that commerce store of yours and bought something. If you delight that customer, he might come back to you because that's the only thing that he remembers.
Maybe I'll add on a little bit because from our perspectives, right, when you talk about technology, actually technology is nothing. The most important part when you are creating a product is you have the end user in mind. What do they need? You look at some products like, for example, Apple phones. Right? Apple phones, right? When it first started, nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for the phones. How many of you asked for multi-touch? Doing this, expand, can use it as a browser? Nobody asked. All right? But when you produce the product itself, if you have these visions that this is actually a solution that the end customer is needed, and they will like it, now that is where you determine, like, at the back, what kind of technology you need to produce the product itself. Mercedes-Benz, right? Everybody like it, correct? But it's expensive, but they still have a lot of customers. Nobody will ask, say, why so expensive, right? And I believe in India, you actually have made, Tata has manufactured a car that is based on $5,000 US, you know? And that have a very specific targeted customer group, right? So if you have the customers, what they want in mind, end in mind, you have the end result in mind, and then from there you work backwards, then you can determine all the technology, the solutions of that. Now you look at Huawei's cloud, right? We actually price it in a certain way also. You know, believe me, when you put all the components together, I think the price is definitely 2-3 times Amazon. But we have to find ways, the boss will tell you, say, whatever you do, make sure the price is this level, so that, because the benchmark is already set. There's no way you can actually go beyond that. The only way is you adjust your technology, adjust what you have inside there, make it simple, make it, make it more creative, to allow you to, at bare minimum, deliver, that kind of solution, more maybe at a slightly better premium, to be able to hit the price range. And to me, that is the way how you make selections of technology to be able to fit in, the customer's needs. All right?
So for price, you should also always look at price as to be just an attribute on the complete experience part of it. Starbucks was never considered to be price sensitive. Yeah, it was always supposed to be premium and so on and so forth. But still we have customers. Why? We'll take the point of customer experience. Being relevant in this today's age is the key to be sustaining. How relevant? So relevance for each business is different. It's the industry who drives it saying that this is more relevant. While the industry is driving in one place, there's customer also at the individual level coming back and saying that what's relevant for him or her at that point of time. We won't be able to go and touch base with each one of them, but we can we can get the commonality out of it and then start addressing it. That's one part of it. Second part of it is, while we are being relevant, at what cost are you trying to be relevant? But in today's age, whatever having said and done, the CEOs and the CFOs are a little bit lenient at saying that while you're talking about digitization, IT should be there somewhere. So the cutoff part is less as of now, as per the previous 4 to 5 years of it. The third part is that how can you be more. So what is the customer looking at now? Convenience at the least, yeah. So if you look at it from the Starbucks point of view, can I order one right now? If I can do it, that's convenience for him. That's where the stickiness comes into that brand, right? Now to provide the stickiness, you need to start understanding the customer even better in terms of, okay, now he had a pattern. This is a segment, and suddenly this segment has started asking for more. Now, that more, how much more is it? Are we ready to achieve that? The rest, whatever we spoke about, the price and everything, is just an attribute. And that's no more, as Ranjan was rightly saying, we never think about what price have we brought that, but how did I feel when I was there? Did I have the wow factor being there? Was there right onto my points? And for today's example, if you come to a Starbucks, if I give you a coffee which is not of your personalized ones, you will never turn back to me, or you will have a complaint or a dissatisfaction lining around there, right? Absolutely. So that's where the key lies in. How relevant can you be? How much can you start innovating over that relevant part of it is where the key lies for us.
Thanks. I think we have few minutes for a couple of questions. Open it up to the audience if you have any queries, questions. Yeah, please. Can you pass on the mic?
Yeah, now we are talking about cloud, and we are talking about the savings of, in your computing expenses. At the same time, when you talk about the IOPS, input, output, operation, and performance, and if you, sometimes what is happening, some players in India who are providing the DC service, in the same instances, they are providing a lot of clients, in the same same instances, they are providing, with the same resources, they are selling thousands of customers. And when other, if the peak time for both, multiple user clients, the performance going very, very less. And when if it is yours, the peak time, you at the same time losing the revenues. So what are the criterias, or how do you, explain about your infras, is there any, my point is there any benchmark, which will be set between the cloud provider and for which we can expect the same delivery from the cloud provider.
So let me phrase the question. So as a cloud provider, you are sharing the same infrastructure between different clients. And if both have peak time which are conflicting, then performance goes down, so the user experience goes down. How do you answer that?
Normally, when you are cloud providers, you need to provide sufficient resource, right? And now, when you subscribe, when the customer subscribe the resource, they can subscribe certain services that is fully dedicated. Dedicated means at any one time, I always have this resource. Now, as a cloud provider, I need to make sure I guarantee that performance. So whether you are peak, your utilization is 0, utilization is 100%, you always get the full attention. Now, there is also another service that actually they can do sharing pool. Meaning, all these will be governed by SLA. Meaning, we know that, there's this pool of resource, there's this group of customer, different season, different time, different peak. So by aggregating them, first is, by using some of this shared resource, they get a lower price. So the first thing is they entitle the price, discount. But they have to be aware in a SLA that, this is what you're entitled, but if there's a conflicting resource, for certain spike seconds, then you will experience certain delay. And that is actually covered by SLA. You understand what I mean? Meaning we can provide a resource, I can have a dedicated pool, I can have the shared pool, right? And it's up to the customer to decide whether you want to pay for the full cost or you want to pay for the discounted price. But in the discounted price, most of the time you are okay. But when it comes to a certain time when there's a competing resource needs, right, you have to be aware that that is actually something that you pay for. Yeah, so in most of it, like if you look at Amazon, they even have something called a reserve instance, right, which is very cheap. But they only do certain of your job that are not critical, maybe a batch job. You can buy some resource from Amazon Reserve Instant. In fact, Huawei are trying to come up with something like that also. And certain processing, maybe it's a graphic rendering. You don't care. You just wait for the resource to be released, out. So this can be like over the night. So over the night, you're all sleeping. So I don't care whether you're processed at 1 o'clock or you're processed at 5 p.m., 4 hours delay, this and that. That is not your concern. But the concern is tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, I want to make sure that my job is done. My rendering is done. So then you pay for a low cost, and then to the Amazon, it is actually a reserve resource, means nobody use, right? Then I give it to you. And then for them, to the service provider, is a full utilization of my resource. Then to yourself, you already expect that I don't get it immediately because of the SLA define that this price is waiting for the resource to be released, then you get a chance to be processed. All right?
Yeah, so I think we will stop now as we are, maybe we'll take one more question if somebody has. Okay, so thanks panelists for this wonderful conversation, a lot of learning for me. Ultimately, technologies will come, technologies will drive a lot of change. It is also important that we keep business first and ensure that we apply technology the right way, the right manner to get the optimal output out of it. To answer your question, that, how do I ensure that what do I pay for, which gives me the maximum output, keeping my business first, business in the center of everything. Thanks everyone again. It was wonderful having a conversation with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, dear panelists, for your lovely insights and contribution.